Have you ever felt like no matter how much you gave, it was never sufficient? Imagine if the love you poured into someone only eroded your self-respect rather than lifting you up. This story might strike a chord, especially if you're older and have struggled to love someone who couldn't see beyond your age. In today's video, I'll share a story that dives into the raw reality of a man who tried to bridge the gap of generations in love, only to realize the toll it took on his self-esteem. Initially, he thought he could handle the teasing, the subtle hints that he wasn't young enough, fast enough, or strong enough. But over time, these minor jabs grew into painful reminders that his partner valued youthful energy over the depth and wisdom that come with age. Despite his efforts to find his worth in other areas, he started to feel diminished, questioning his value as a man. This story isn't just about the struggles of romance, it's about reclaiming self-respect, recognizing the power of self-love, and understanding when it's time to draw the line. If you've ever felt the sting of rejection or felt undermined in a relationship, this story will resonate with you. You'll witness his journey towards self-respect as he learns that his worth doesn't rely on the validation of someone who only sees the surface. Stay tuned, because by the end of this video, you'll not only feel inspired by his story, but you'll also learn 5 valuable lessons that are essential for anyone facing relationship challenges later in life. These lessons remind us that dignity, self-worth, and inner peace are far more precious than fleeting approval. You'll discover how to stand firm against the pressures of proving yourself, especially when you already know your own value. So if you're ready to reclaim your self-respect, let's dive into this moving story. If you're not yet subscribed, I suggest subscribing and turning on notifications so you won't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoy this video, please help me continue sharing these valuable insights by liking and sharing it. As the months passed, he began to notice subtle changes in her behavior, small shifts that, almost imperceptibly, started to break him down. Initially, it was just small, seemingly insignificant remarks, a comment here or there, cloaked in humor, but with a sting hidden beneath. She'd tell him he needed to take better care of himself, that someone his age shouldn't be dealing with so many aches and pains, as if his body were somehow disappointing. He laughed nervously at first, convincing himself it was her way of joking and lightening the mood. But the jokes didn't stop. They became more frequent, more pointed, each one a silent jab that stuck in his mind. Over time, his laughter became heavy, weighed down by an unsettling truth he tried to ignore, that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't enough for her anymore. What had once seemed playful now started to chip away at the man he thought he was. Each joke carried an underlying message, suggesting that he was too old, too slow, too fragile for her. The confidence he once held began to fade under her criticisms. He tried to brush it off and laugh along, but her words began to hold a power he hadn't expected. They echoed in his mind, reminding him that his body no longer matched her youthful energy, and that, in her eyes, this was a flaw, a shortcoming. Then, without warning, her criticisms took on a sharper, crueler tone. What had begun as casual remarks transformed into direct assaults on his masculinity, his sense of worth, and his identity as a partner. She began to outright say he was too slow and predictable in bed. He had always believed that true intimacy was about emotional connection, tenderness, and the ability to truly bond with someone. But to her, none of that seemed to matter. Her harsh words struck him like a dagger. She told him he couldn't satisfy her as a younger man would, that his touch was inadequate, unworthy of someone as lively as she was. His heart sank. These weren't just hurtful remarks, they were a direct attack on everything he'd come to believe about himself. He had always thought he could offer her something deeper than youthful vigor, something more lasting. But now, confronted by her accusations, he felt as if he'd failed her, himself, and them as a couple. He tried to reason with her, to plead for her understanding, explaining that his age didn't define his ability to make her happy. But she wasn't listening. She had made up her mind. Her words were final, slicing through every attempt he made to salvage his self-respect. Desperate to show her he still had something to offer, he told her that, although he might lack the strength and energy of youth, He'd learned, over the years, how to please her in ways that didn't rely on physical power. He'd found other, subtler ways to be intimate, ways that came from patience, understanding, and a deep knowledge of how to give and receive in meaningful ways. He told her that he had mastered the art of pleasuring her, that he knew how to bring her satisfaction in a way that was unique to their bond. His voice was steady, filled with a kind of quiet assurance that only comes with years of experience. He wasn't just offering his body, he was offering his heart, his care, and his devotion. But instead of meeting his sincerity with respect, she laughed at him. Her laughter was cold, dismissive, as if she were somehow repulsed by his attempt to prove his worth. She looked at him with disdain, her every word dripping with scorn. It was a slap in the face, one that left him feeling smaller and inferior. Her contempt shattered him in a way he hadn't anticipated. Despite the pain, he clung to the hope that this was just a test, a challenge to his patience and resilience. He convinced himself that if he could just be more understanding, just show her how much he cared, she would eventually see his worth and the importance of the life they had built together. But with every harsh remark, every dismissive look, he found himself sinking deeper into a well of self-doubt. Her words made him question everything he had once believed about himself. He began to wonder if he was indeed just a relic of the past, someone whose age had rendered him invisible, insignificant. It felt as if, in her eyes, he had nothing valuable to offer, a thought that gnawed at him constantly, day and night. For anyone observing from the outside, it might seem simple to criticize his choice to stay, to endure the continuous humiliation. But those who have truly loved understand how love, even in its most painful form, can hold you captive. It makes you look beyond the hurt, past the surface, and sometimes you end up convincing yourself that you're the one who must change, who must try harder, who must prove your worth. He no longer felt bound only by her youthful energy, but also by the fleeting hope that he could somehow prove himself worthy to someone who couldn't truly see him for who he was. It was a draining, soul-crushing cycle, but he found himself unable to break free. One evening, after yet another painful argument that left him feeling more diminished than ever, he stood alone in front of the mirror, looking at the man he once knew, a man who had once been full of life, full of pride. Now, he saw a 70-year-old man, his face marked by time, his eyes heavy with the weight of experience. He stared at his reflection, and for the first time in years he saw himself not as she saw him, not as an aging, flawed man, but as someone who had lived, loved, learned, and grown. And in that moment, a powerful realization struck him. Self-love had to resonate louder than her cruel words, louder than the external validation he'd been seeking for so long. He had allowed her opinions, her rejection, to chip away at him, but that needed to end. With a steady breath, he made a decision. He was done living in the shadow of someone else's judgment. He deserved better than this. The next day, he walked into her home with calm determination. His heart heavy yet resolute, he told her, in a quiet yet firm tone, that he could no longer continue the relationship. As much as he loved her, he could not remain in a situation where he was constantly belittled, where he was made to feel less than who he truly was. She was shocked, her eyes wide with disbelief. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't thought he would stand up for himself and choose to walk away. In that instant, he saw her confusion, her surprise, and something within him shifted. He had reclaimed a piece of himself, his dignity, his strength, his self-respect. The conversation was painful, filled with tears, regrets, and unspoken words, but it was also liberating. He felt like himself again, a man not defined by others' judgments, but by his own sense of self-worth. It was an act of wisdom, not weakness. As he left her house, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders, a relief he hadn't felt in months. He was no longer bound by her expectations or her disdain. He was free to love himself, free to embrace who he had become. The days that followed were marked by a quiet kind of loneliness, but it wasn't the hopeless isolation he had felt before. It was a dignified solitude, one that gave him the room to rediscover himself and reconnect with what truly mattered. He reached out to old friends and rekindled relationships he had let drift away over the years. He traveled to places he'd once dreamed of seeing but had put off for too long. He revisited hobbies that brought him joy, passions he had set aside to please others. He started to understand that his worth wasn't defined by her or anyone else's approval. It was rooted in the life he had lived, the experiences he carried, and the person he had become. Each wrinkle on his face told a story of resilience, of lessons learned, of love given and received. Every gray hair was a memory, a testament to the life he had lived with integrity, a life full of value regardless of age or physical changes. He began to see aging not as something to fear or hide from, but as something to embrace, for it brought with it the wisdom to understand what truly matters. In the quiet solitude of his newfound peace, he realized that the love he had been searching for all along was the love he needed to give himself. Over time, he learned to cherish who he was, unconditionally and without apology. He understood that true love doesn't diminish you, it elevates you. It doesn't judge you for the passing years, it honors the person you have become. With this understanding, he moved forward into the next phase of his life, no longer seeking approval, but finding satisfaction in knowing he was enough just as he was. He had spent so many years sacrificing his happiness, his desires, and his very sense of self, all in an effort to please someone else. His life had turned into an endless series of compromises and self-neglect. For so long, he had believed that, to be loved and seen, he needed to hide parts of himself, his dreams, his needs, his truth. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. He realized he no longer needed to bend or erase himself just to keep someone else happy. He didn't have to keep giving up his peace and joy. He had discovered a powerful truth. It was time to prioritize his own happiness, honor his own needs, values, and self-respect. He deserved this. This transformation didn't come easily, and it certainly didn't come without its challenges. But as he stood at this turning point in life, he understood that he could no longer place his peace, dignity, and identity in the hands of others. For those who are older, especially those wrestling with similar doubts and fears about love, this story serves as a reminder. It's a call to recognize that seeking love is not only natural but essential. However, it should never come at the cost of inner peace, dignity, or self-worth. As time marches on, it brings lessons that can only be fully understood through experience. Only those who have lived long enough can truly understand how essential it is to protect the purity of one's heart and soul, even when the world tries to tell us otherwise. Looking back, he saw that the relationship wasn't a failure, but rather a profound learning experience, one that taught him transformative lessons in acceptance, self-respect, and staying true to his values regardless of others' opinions. He had become more than just a man in a relationship. He had evolved into a man who understood the true meaning of self-love, dignity, and inner peace. He realized that before he could be truly loved by others, he had to first love and accept himself, fully embracing every aspect of who he was. This meant acknowledging his flaws, his imperfections, his aging body, and the hard-won wisdom symbolized by every wrinkle and gray hair. It required him to see that his kindness, intelligence, and strength were inherently worth loving, even if he didn't meet society's fleeting ideals of perfection. His choice to end the relationship, to leave something that no longer nourished him, wasn't just an act of letting go, it was a declaration of self-reclamation, a choice to prioritize his peace over toxic love, and a setting of boundaries that honored his soul. For anyone who hears this story, it's a powerful reminder that self-love isn't just a nice idea, it's essential, and that sometimes the most caring thing we can do for ourselves is to walk away from situations that diminish us. This story isn't just for the young or middle-aged, it's a message for those who have lived long enough to grasp the complex nature of time, love, and self-worth. Only those who have faced life's full array of challenges can truly appreciate the priceless value of dignity, understanding it's something that should never be sacrificed for anyone or anything. Through deep reflection and healing, he learned that a man's worth isn't defined by the years he's lived or the physical strength that inevitably fades with age. Instead, A man's worth lies in the integrity with which he meets life's adversities. It's that integrity that allows him to move through life with grace, to rise after every fall, and to stay true to his principles, even when the world pressures him to compromise. Integrity turns every wrinkle into a badge of wisdom, every gray hair into a testament of resilience and strength. His story isn't just about love and relationships, it's about living authentically, growing into the person you were meant to be, and holding on to the things that truly matter: peace, dignity, self-respect. Now, as he shares his journey, he hopes to impart 5 deeply important lessons, particularly valuable for those who are older and may be grappling with the complexities of relationships in later life. These lessons are rooted in hard-earned wisdom that only comes through life's experiences, offering essential guidance for anyone navigating the turbulent waters of love and self-discovery in their later years. The first lesson is difficult but necessary. No matter how appealing it may seem to recapture youthful excitement with a younger partner, we must stay grounded in our true selves. It's easy to get swept up in the notion that youth equals vitality and that our worth is somehow tied to recapturing it. But just as in this story, many people in their later years find themselves investing energy, time, and love into relationships that, deep down, don't value them for who they are. They become focused on proving their vigor, reliving youthful moments, and in doing so, allow themselves to be treated poorly. The urge to prove one's worth can become a trap, often leading to a tolerance for neglect or humiliations that would have been unacceptable at other times in life. True love should never be about proving endurance or worth. It should be a place of mutual respect, understanding, and appreciation as equals. The second lesson is crucial. The importance of self-love cannot be overstated. In his case, enduring cruel remarks about his age, his abilities, and his physical limitations, thinking he had to bear this kind of disrespect for love, was gradually eroding his self-worth. He had convinced himself that suffering in silence was noble, that enduring pain and humiliation were part of loving someone. But in reality, he was losing something far more precious: his dignity, his sense of self, and his peace. Self-love isn't just a luxury or a passing feeling, it's a fundamental commitment to caring for yourself. When we forget our worth and stop seeing ourselves as deserving of respect and kindness, we become vulnerable to mistreatment by others. It's only when we honor ourselves that we can build genuinely healthy, fulfilling relationships based on mutual love and respect. The third lesson focuses on the courage to say enough. It takes tremendous bravery to face solitude, even if temporary, and recognize it not as a punishment, but as a source of peace, a place for healing, reflection, and rebuilding. When he chose to leave the toxic relationship, he wasn't just walking away from someone else, he was moving toward a better version of himself. He was choosing the more challenging, but infinitely more dignified path of embracing solitude, rather than enduring emotional neglect. In that solitude, he found a calm that no one else could take from him, a peace that restored his soul. Sometimes, solitude isn't a punishment, it's a sacred space where we rediscover our true selves and rebuild our strength. The fourth lesson highlights the treasure of life's experiences. Though our bodies may slow down with age, the wisdom we've gained is invaluable. Every wrinkle tells a story, each gray hair carries the weight of experience, and every scar represents a challenge faced and overcome. He came to realize that he didn't need to fit into some artificial ideal of youth and beauty. What he possessed was far richer: a lifetime of memories, lessons, and wisdom that no one could take away. Those who chase after superficial beauty will never grasp the depth of a fully lived life, and he had learned the hard way that it wasn't worth trying to impress anyone who couldn't appreciate the richness of his character, the wisdom in his eyes, and the love in his heart. If you're still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment one below to let me know you're still here with me. The fifth lesson speaks to the heart of love itself. Men who take the time to truly focus on their partner's happiness, showing care, tenderness, and affection beyond physical performance, are often the ones who exhibit the most generosity in relationships. Even without youthful energy, he discovered that love and affection don't need to be defined by physical vigor. he could still show his love through gentle gestures, kind words, and thoughtful acts of care. But respect is at the heart of it all. Offering love and pleasure to a partner should never feel like an obligation, a duty, or a way to diminish oneself. It should be an expression of care, a shared connection between two people who honor each other's wants and needs. Ultimately, this story is more than a personal journey. It's a powerful testament to the significance of self-respect, living genuinely, and appreciating the true worth of love, the love we offer, and the love we let ourselves receive. It serves as a reminder that, regardless of age, we all deserve love, dignity, and peace, and that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to step away from relationships that no longer fulfill us and embrace the freedom that comes from reclaiming our sense of self. As we conclude this story, let's take a moment to fully absorb what it reveals about the path of love, self-worth, and dignity. We've walked alongside a man who gave all he could, hoping that his patience and love would bridge the gaps of age and insecurity, but who ultimately learned a deep truth: real love isn't about proving oneself to another. It's about recognizing your own value as you are and refusing to sacrifice your peace or dignity to satisfy someone else's temporary expectations. So now, I ask you, what has this story taught you? Perhaps it's the strength of self-respect, the importance of leaving a relationship that no longer lifts you up, or the reminder that real love that respects, values, and fully embraces you has no age limit. Each lesson in this journey speaks to the courage required to protect your worth, even if it means stepping into the unknown. I'd love to hear your reflections. What is one lesson from this story that you'll carry forward? Is there a way you've been undervaluing yourself, or a boundary you now realize you need to establish? Share an insight you're planning to put into action, something you believe could genuinely make a difference. Your comments not only encourage others, but they're also a powerful step towards self-empowerment and change. If this video has resonated with you, please take a moment to share your thoughts below. And if you found value in this message, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Together, let's keep these discussions going, bringing wisdom, dignity, and self-love to every step of our journey. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to hearing how this story has connected with each of you.